Today, we're going to talk about rotations. We're going to figure out what rotations are, the rules that go with rotations, and how it works. So first thing we need to do is know that a rotation is a transformation where a figure is turned. In this case, we're going to be using the patty paper, which is this transparent paper right here that I have already branded to the notes. We will demonstrate a clockwise rotation. Clockwise, it turns in the same way as a clock, so it goes to the right. And then we're going to do rotations by a 90 degree, 180 degree, 270 degrees, and 360 degrees. By doing this, it'll help us learn the rules, which is also called the algebraic representation. So today's activity is going to help us figure out what rotations do, and using the coordinates from our new shapes, we're going to be able to figure out the rules for each of these rotations. So before we do that, let's go ahead and write down our pre-image points. So our pre-images are old. This is our old right here. Okay, this is our old. So I'm going to take my old shape and I'm just going to write down my coordinates. So point A is at 3, 4. Point B is at 4, 4. Point C is at 5, 1. And point D is at 3, 1. These are all of my old points from my old or my original shape. So now, to get to the rotations part, I'm going to use this patty paper to help me turn my figure on my graph. So what I got to do first is I'm going to draw my axes. I don't have to label them, I just have to draw the lines. This gives me a guiding lines for whenever I turn them, whenever I turn the figure. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace my shape onto my patty paper. And then I'm going to make sure I label my points. So now that I have done that, I'm ready to rotate. So the first rotation that we have is 90 degrees. What this means is I'm going to move or rotate my figure 1 quadrant to the right. That would be a 90-degree rotation. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my patty paper. I always am rotating about the origin, which means that the origin is my center, and that's what I'm going to rotate around. And now I have my graph here. Okay, so my new point for A is at 4, -3. B is at 4, -4. C is at 1, -5. And D is at 1, -3. So let's compare these points right here. So the first thing we're going to do is let's look at our x values. So let's look at our pre-image. So our pre-image 3 was my x value, and when I look at my 90 degree clockwise rotation, I'm looking to see, is the 3 still in the x place? Well, no, the 3 is now in the y place, but now it has a negative sign attached to it. Let's look at a point B. I have a 4. It's kind of harder to tell here because there's 2 4s. But I have this right here, the same pattern happened. My x became my y and it became negative. Same thing here. So my rule for 90 degrees rotation clockwise would be my x and my y change places. So my y became my x, but my x values change sign. So my X and my Y trade places, so the 3 and the 4 switched, but then my X value became negative. That is my rule for a 90-degree rotation. So now, let's do 180 degrees. So we go back to the beginning. Okay, here's my original. 180 degrees would be 2 quadrants to the right. So remember, each 90-degree angle is 1. So if I'm having 180, there's 2 90-degree rotations in there. So I'm going to do twice. So here's 90. Here's 180. Okay? So let's write my points down for this. My A is at -3, -4. My B is at -4, -4. My C is at -5, -1. And my D is at -3, -1. So let's look at our X values again to see what our rule would be. So my X value for A was 3. If I look at my 90-degree rotation clockwise, the 3 is still in the X place, the X value, but now it's negative. The same thing here. The 4 is now negative, 5 is now negative, 3 is now negative. And then I look at my Y's, they're still in the same place, but now they are also negative too. So our rule for this, for 180 degrees clockwise rotation, my X and my Y are in the same place as the original. However, they both change signs. Now, let's go back up to the beginning, start over, and let's do a 270 degrees rotation. This means I'm going to rotate my figure 270 degrees, or 3 quadrants to the right. So I have 1, 2, 3. So here are my new points here. So let's write down our values. So A is now at -4, +3. B is at -4, +4. C is at -1. C is at -1, +5. And D is at -1, +3. So let's compare our original to our 270 degrees clockwise rotation. So let's look at our X values. So for point A, my X value is 3. My 3 is no longer in my X value position on the 270 degrees clockwise. Now it is in the Y. Same thing here. Same thing for C, and same thing for D. So I know that my X and my Y values have switched place. My Y value of 4 is now in my X. However, now they have changed sign. They were positive, now they're negative. So my rule for 270 degrees clockwise rotation is going to be -YX. My X and my Y changed spots, they switched places, and my Y values became negative. All right, let's do our last one. So in our last one, we have 360 degrees rotation, which means I'm going to rotate it 4 quadrants to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You notice 360 degrees rotation means that my figure is in the same quadrant it was before. In this case, it's in quadrant 1. I'm just going to write my rules down, or write my new points down for A, B, C, and D. So I know it's in the same spot as it was before, so my points are the same as the original. 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 1, 3, 1. So all my points are in the same spot that they were before. So that means it stays the exact same as my original